Hi, Maura. Thank you for meeting with us today. We're going to ask you a few questions, so we'll get started. Do you consider yourself a modern quilter, and what do you see as modern quilting?
I feel like I'm kind of in between modern quilting and traditional quilting, but with my use of solid colors, I see that I do have a place in the modern quilt world, and also my use of scale, and sometimes I play with scale and make some traditional patterns large, and in that way I see myself connected in the modern quilt world.
So we know you live in Texas. Does the Texas prairie inspire you as far as landscapes, flowers, etc., in your quilts?
It does. I feel like I source a lot of colors. I dye my fabrics naturally, and a lot of the colors I source from nature. So I'm harvesting pecans from the trees and pomegranates, and that comes into the work, the quilts that I make. So it does inspire me. It inspires me for the color in my quilts.
So, like you mentioned, you make quilts from dyeing fabrics all the way through the end product. I know you hand stitch your quilts. So, from beginning to end, how long does it take you to complete? And is it difficult to send them off to other people, to give them away, to live in new homes or in museums and that sort of thing?
The quilts can take they vary in time. It depends on how large the quilt is and how intricate the patchwork is, and also how many colors go into the quilt, since I'm dyeing the colors. And so one of the quilts that has been one of my larger quilts was up to 200 hours, and one of my smaller quilts can be around 20 to 40 hours. So they do take a long time. They vary though greatly in the size and scale of things. It's not hard for me to give them away to clients that are excited, and also it's a part of what sustains the business. Is being able to sell a quilt is also, helping pay for the materials to make the next quilt, and also improving my workspace. So it's inspiring. I definitely feel motivated sometimes to make quilts, so I can sometimes make the improvements in my life and my workspace. So I like to sell quilts. I will say that I get help sometimes with the hand quilting, and I have a couple of friends in town, and the thought of sometimes getting rid of a quilt, I more or less kind of, it's not the work that I put into it, but the work that like my friends have helped me on that maybe get a little sentimental about. So
The quilts you make and design seem both modern and traditional, as you said. What about your quilts have this effect, would you say? Like, what design would you say is modern or traditional?
I
Or what elements in them make it either modern or traditional?
I guess the traditional elements are more or less the patterns. I really stick to some really simplistic patterns like sawtooth stars and bars and strips and log cabins. Love the traditional, and nine patch. So I'm not really reinventing the wheel at all, but what's more modern, I guess, about them is how I'm playing with color and using pops of color and finding some abstract like visuals with my use of solid colors.
So I know that you have a brand new baby. So I'm just curious, does it affect the amount of work or time that you put into your quilt? And also, is there more inspiration there, or has your inspiration changed at all with having a baby?
Everything's changed with having a baby, and I'm finding that that's a really beautiful thing. It was a struggle at first. I saw my time for making quilts was just almost non-existent in some ways, and as she's still just an infant and at home, I've talked to a lot of moms, and there's like new stages as they grow and go to school. And for now, I've scaled down, and my time is more precious, and I'm able to do less. But this is also a good time to reflect and kind of reorganize the structure of how I am a business and what I plan for the future. And so, in fact, it's giving me an opportunity to garden more, as gardening kind of is a little easier to bring the baby along and have her on my back. So it's good. It's opened up new opportunities and maybe made some other ones harder. But it's going to change.
Okay, I saw you collaborated with John Mayer on his single for EXO. How did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, that was a really exciting week. He emailed me out of the blue, and I wasn't exactly sure how he had heard of me. I thought it was through Design Sponge. She had mentioned me that week and featured me as a Day in the Life series. And the same day that went live, John Mayer emailed me. So I thought, is John Mayer a Design Sponge reader? But I went ahead and asked him how he heard of me, and it was just through a Japanese artist, a brand called Capital. He, I guess, is into them, and they had pointed him in my direction. He bought a quilt from me off my website. It was really exciting, and after he bought the quilt, he had photoshopped 2 of the designs on the quilt and put them together and saw that it made XO, and then he asked, what do you think about this? For an album, I would like to cover Beyonce's XO single, and I was like, sounds really exciting. I would love that, but in fact, I think instead of photoshopping the 2 elements from the left corner and the right corner, maybe I can remake a small quilt that would actually be all the stitch work would go together, and it would work better for the artwork. And it was really just as simple as that. He said, go for it, let's do it. And then I was working with Sony to get the check, and it was awesome. It was exciting, and it was a lot of people. I saw a lot of good feedback from that. His fans really excited that he was going, supporting a quilt artist and had a quilt aesthetic. It makes sense though. He has that Americana feel to him.
Can you tell us a little bit about your train trip with your fellow artisans that you did recently?
So I was last year in September. For the month of September, I traveled alongside a train. Doug Aiken is a visual artist in LA, and he had a vision to make an artist happening, which was really him inviting a lot of musicians and artists to come on a train ride from New York to California over the month of September. And it was sponsored by Levi's, and I had done a series of quilt for Levi's, and they have been a really fun partnership. And they called on me and a couple other artists who are makers and other people such as Cobra Rock Boots and Forest Bound Bags and Junkyard Jeans. These were other businesses that traveled the U.S., and we each took a turn on the train in the Levi's car and demonstrated our craft and just really were a part of the happening. Each stop that the train took, we stopped and set up an event, and the artists performed and the makers were in a yurt, and we really were some people called us a glorified sweatshop. We were making boots and sewing quilts and making bags, but really what we were doing is we were demonstrating our process, kind of like a maker's fair in our own little corner of the happening. It was a really fun time. It was right before we got pregnant, so it was very appropriate in our life to fit in another wild thing before we kind of had to be a little more homebound.
Okay, last question. What are you teaching here at QuiltCon, and are you lecturing at all?
Yeah, I did 2 workshops this weekend. One was on hand quilting with Sashiko thread. It was wonderful. We had 24 people participate, and everyone really enjoyed slowing down, and the personality and warmth of the hand stitch was everyone really appreciated that. Then the other class was natural dyeing. A workshop on natural dyeing. So I went through how I really wanted to focus on the quilters, and so we dyed fat quarters, and we dyed cotton with cochineal and Osage orange and indigo. And everyone came away with swatches, and it was really fun to walk everyone through. I think that we might see more natural dyes pop up in quilts in the future. Who knows?
That's great. Okay, thanks for meeting with us today.
Thank you.